My name is Seth Cohen, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer of Forbes and the founder of the Forbes Impact Lab. I'm here at NASDAQ Marketsite today, where I'm joined by Sarah Dusek, the founder of Under Canvas, a leading brand in sustainable luxury glamping. She's also the founder and general partner of Enygma Ventures and an advocate for women around the world, and particularly in Africa. Sarah, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to start with you right now. When you co-founded Under Canvas, this very eco-sensible tourism slash kind of adventure company, what was behind that? What was your vision for this? Because I think that's your why. So tell me your why.
My why was creating access to the outdoors. My husband and I, when we got married over almost 20 years ago now, he was a huge outdoors guy and I was not. But we both were passionate about the outdoors and passionate about being out in nature, except he wanted to rough it and I did not. And so our solution to that problem was to reimagine the African safari experience, to enable other people like me who maybe want to enjoy the outdoors but don't want to camp and don't want to have a rough time being out in nature.
So you obviously hit a market that had an appetite for this, because you scaled it to over $100 million company. Reimagining a safari, reimagining travel, that's a really big vision. Did it ever feel too audacious for you?
Of course, yeah, it absolutely felt audacious, but at the same time, when you have big, crazy and magical dreams, the way you make those happen is just one step at a time, and you take one tiny step and you try one tiny idea and you see what happens after that as you take step by step by step.
So that makes sense to me, but what I kind of realized reading your book was that you note that there's a difference in gender from the way people kind of make that vision, that having that bigger vision maybe is less common among women entrepreneurs and founders than men. Why is that?
I don't know why that is, but I think a large part of it has to do with our conditioning. If you think it hasn't been that long since women have been in the workplace and women have been out of the role of being only full-time homemakers, and I think women historically have been largely conditioned to build small businesses.
Yeah.
And in conjunction with renting homes and managing kids, what we can manage has been a smaller lifestyle business for many, many women. And I think now what we're beginning to see is this shift between women working full-time, having very intentional, serious careers, but we've not necessarily made that huge leap into thinking about building big businesses and shifting the way we think about business and our role in it.
Yeah, so I guess hence the title of your book, Thinking Bigger.
Yes.
So one of the things I guess I was also struck by with your journey is you built this company and then you've decided now not to only be a builder but to be an investor with Enygma. Tell me what Enygma is focused on. I know you're spending a lot of time in Africa and thinking a lot about Africa. What is it, why is it, and what is the portfolio that Enygma is focused on?
Yeah, we have been focused on investing in female entrepreneurs for the last 5 years now, since I exited my role at Under Canvas. And that was largely due to the fact, because of two beliefs. One, more women need access to capital to help them build and grow and scale big businesses.
Is a statistic that I recall you sharing less than 2%
Yes.
of all venture capital goes to women founders?
Yes, wow. Just 2% of all venture money is going to female founders, which is wild.
Yeah.
And we all know it takes capital to make capital, right? You can't build a business without access to capital. So my own journey of trying to grow and scale a business and raise capital for that business was really difficult. And I just knew it shouldn't be that hard for women to get money to build great companies. And so that was part of the thinking. Can we engage with other female founders trying to grow and scale companies? Because I know that building companies is the way you build a nation.
Well,
it's the backbone of our economy.
Yeah, but you focus not just on building a nation, this is building a continent. So why is Africa a place that you think investors like yourself should be both looking at and empowering those local founders?
Yeah. We know that Africa is one of the least developed continents on the planet. Yep. We've got a huge gap between the rich and the poor, and a vast majority of the world's people living in poverty are living in the continent of Africa. And if we want to change that, we've got to stop thinking about handouts, and we've got to start thinking about hand-ups.
Yeah.
And the way we do that is to invest, and invest in local people, people who can see the problems, who can solve them with their own African solutions, and build companies that are sustainable, impactful, and economy building.
Yeah.
And so that's the idea, was like, could we take our dollars and see them go so much further? Could we physically see ourselves investing in a continent and seeing individual GDPs of countries going up because of the companies that we built? And that was exciting to me, feeling like we could champion talented, smart, capable human beings who just don't have access to capital, access to networks, access to a global community of people who could help them and do business with them and partner with them. And could we be that bridge? Just like when I built Under Canvas, could we build a bridge to the outdoors? Could we build a bridge for Africans to grow and scale their businesses?
Beautiful. What is the culture shift that has to happen in Africa and with some of these investors that are looking in Africa, and some of the entrepreneurs that are looking out for investors, to really make that connection and maybe have them end up being as successful that they too can be listed on NASDAQ?
Yeah. Well, I think it's fascinating that less than 30 women in the history of the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange have taken their companies public in the US. From founding.
Say that stat again.
From founding to taking their companies public, less than 30 women have founded companies that they've taken public. That's an extraordinarily low number. And so we know that part of that problem is to take your company public, you have to have built a really big company. That's why you would typically do that. And we know that capital is that missing gap. We know that supporting female founders to grow and scale and build extraordinary companies is a capital problem. Yeah. And that's the shift that we've got to make. So
let's talk about your book for a moment, Thinking Bigger, a pitch deck formula for women who want to change the world. I love the title. I read it cover to cover, or however we read it now on digital formats. And what I was struck again was the very preciseness in which you lay out a vision of how people can change and this could not just be just women, although obviously the book focuses on women, but from really that idea of knowing the need to building a business. But why focus on the pitch deck itself?
Your pitch deck is your introduction to your business and your introduction to yourself. It's like your calling card. It's the way you give everyone the headlines about your business in a really quick format. You get 10 pages typically and sometimes even less. You make a 2-minute pitch to tell us your story and tell us all the hard information. So the pitch deck is the tangible sort of data points for you to tell your story about your business. And what I realized was a lot of women don't know what is supposed to be in that deck. Yeah. There's a formula. Investors have metrics, they have acronyms, they have philosophies about what something that is investable looks like. And for women to succeed in raising capital, you have to understand the answers to the quiz, right? If you don't know what someone's looking for, you don't know what the answer is, you can't study for it, you can't prepare for it, you can't build for it, you can't make it happen. And so that was the idea for the book. Could we unravel the mysteries of Wall Street, if you like? Sure. Could we get behind the acronyms? Could we help women understand the building blocks of scale?
It is such an important point you're raising. There's this inside language in a way that many people take for granted that they have, but particularly entrepreneurs who are not familiar with the sector don't know how to code. Is there some watch outs when individuals are building their pitch decks, that not only should they incorporate some of this language, but maybe common mistakes they make when they're making their pitches. Yeah.
Yeah, so many pitches. I remember when I first started listening to the pitches of female entrepreneurs would tell me that they had a plan of how they were going to do $1 million of revenue. And I was like, oh, no. If you're going to pitch an investor, you need to tell the investor your plan to build a $100 million company or more. Yeah. You have to sell us on a much bigger dream. And what I noticed about women was, and myself included, we tended to be more realistic, more practical, more, this is what I can see, this is what's hard, this is what's definite, without a sense of, this is what's possible. Mm-hmm. And investors need your possibilities with a plan of how you might make your possibilities a reality. Yeah. And women tend to be more conservative, less aggressive, more measured in their approach. And of course, from an investment perspective, we need people who are bullish. We need people who are brave. We need people who are going to champion, something till it's knocking the doors down.
So it sounds like the best combination in your mind is both, right?
Yes.
Have that big vision and be able to articulate it in the right kind of framing, but then also have some of those skills, the emotional intelligence, perhaps a bit of humility. Yes. That oftentimes women entrepreneurs have more than men entrepreneurs. It makes a lot of sense. I guess I'm curious, again, it must not have been easy building your company. What other lessons of resilience or overcoming challenges have you brought into your thinking and advising those women that are either reading this book or receiving investments from you?
Yeah, I often tell the entrepreneurs that I'm working with, it's he or she who can stay in the ring long enough is the one who's going to succeed. And often we give up too soon, right? And the challenges for entrepreneurs are endless. And building a company is solving one problem after another problem, after another, after another. There's just endless problem solving. And the challenge becomes, can you go the distance? And what is required to be resilient enough, strong enough, thick-skinned enough to be able to take the rejection, to take the issues of things not working out, things not going the way you wanted, things not panning out the way you hope them to, and can you stay? Mm-hmm. Can you stay with your core problem? Can you iterate enough to find a solution that ultimately has enough legs, that sticks, and that people want it and will pay you for it forever?
So Sarah, I have this like kind of super enthusiasm running through me because you're making me feel like anything's possible, even at this time of real complexity and challenge. So I refer to myself as an applied optimist, a realist, but an optimist nonetheless. Tell me, in kind of some final thoughts, what's making you most optimistic these days? Either, again, as a leader, a founder, an investor, someone who's engaged in the continent shaping and global shaping work of Africa. What's keeping you going right now?
I think what keeps me going is meeting extraordinary people with vision. And I know when we have vision and when we have an idea of what something could look like, and we start to pull that future in towards us, and however hard and however heavy that is, and meeting enough people with a sense of they can see a better day. We can build a better future. And that's what entrepreneurs are doing all the time. So if you want to be encouraged about the shape and the size and the feel of our world, spend time with entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are our builders of our future. They can see the future and they're pulling it in moment by moment. And often they're ahead of their time, right? It takes a lot of us time to catch up to where the entrepreneur often is and what they can see. But that's what makes me hopeful. And even more hopeful that if we can diversify who has access to capital, if we can make sure that the global south has capital, women have capital, people of color have capital, we'll start to build the kind of world that works for us all. And when we do that, that's when we're going to build a better future.
That's beautiful. I love it. The idea of inclusivity of capital creates opportunity for the world. Sarah, thank you so much for taking time with me today. I've really appreciated your insights. I've been joined by Sarah Dusek, who is, again, an entrepreneur, founder, investor, Enygma Ventures, and author of Thinking Bigger. a pitch deck formula for women who want to change the world. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Seth.